Well, welcome back everybody. My name's Andrew and you're watching the Kelly's Country Life. So recently we received a new product here on the channel, and it's something very special for our storm shelter. I showed it off in the last storm shelter episode, and I asked y'all to give me some suggestions of things that you would like to see this solar power generator run. All right, so today we're going to go over some of the specs of the EcoFlow River PRO. And then we're going to do a test. I've got a lot of different things here on the table, as well as some other things inside a room out here. Now, excuse the mess, we're out here in my shop. That's where the majority of the stuff that I need to test is at, as well as we've had a lot of requests. Will this run a freezer and refrigerator? It just so happens I have both out here in my shop as well. So we're going to be testing a whole bunch of items today, looking at the output and expected runtime of this device, and kind of answering those questions that you had. All right, for starters, what is the EcoFlow River PRO? Believe it or not, this here is what's called a battery generator, or as you heard me refer to it, as a solar power generator. And I'll explain why on that in just a second. But long story short, this is a highly sophisticated generator, electric generator. There is a battery built in here. As you can see, it has 110 volt outlets on the outside, as well as a bunch of other outlets that we're going to discuss here in just a second. Now, what makes this so unique? I didn't even realize these existed till recently. This is an awesome device. So think of your gas-powered generators. Well, this is it in a much more compact package that is battery powered and has pure sine wave technology. So very, very clean power, a lot cleaner than a lot of the other cheaper generators that you see out there. Now, what makes this one so unique compared to some other ones on the market? It's got a rapid charge feature, and I've already tested that. It will charge from 0 to 80% charge in 1 hour. Extremely fast. Now that's off of a wall outlet. It'll go from 0 to 100% charge in 1.6 hours. I don't know if there's anything else on the market that'll charge quite that fast. That's amazing in and of itself. All right, so here's something that's very unique about this device. Over here on this side, this is your charging inputs. You can plug it into the wall, or you have another outlet over here to where you can charge by solar panels, and it can charge as quick as 4.5 hours, depending on how you have your panels set up and what type. Or you can also charge this by 12 volt. That is really, really neat. So it gives you a ton of flexibility on charging options here. You can literally charge this from the cigarette lighter or a 12 volt battery, your vehicle, for example, from solar power, or again, the wall outlet. Now, if you look over here on this side, you see that you have your standard 110 volt outlets. This unit is designed for 600 continuous watts or 1200 surge, but it has a really cool feature called X Boost. If you download the EcoFlow app, you can turn X Boost on this device, and you can run up to 1800 watt surge to really get certain things started. They have that first initial surge to get going. That's a neat feature and a ton of power in such a small compact package. Now on the front, you can see we have 3 USB charging outputs. One of them is a fast charger, and you have a 100 watt USB-C dedicated charger here. So super fast charging for phones or anything that takes USB-C. You also have a 12 volt outlet, so if you need to use any 12 volt devices, lights, etc. And it also comes with a built-in light, low, high, and SOS feature. So if you need to use this out in the woods, camping, emergency situations, you've also got a backup light on this device here. One other very neat feature of this device, and something I'm really considering getting, is you can piggyback another power bank off of this. So this here is the actual generator unit. You can purchase something that looks very similar to this, and it's an external battery. So you can piggyback another battery into this and have twice the runtime, twice the watt hours. And speaking of, this is rated at 720 watt hours. If you were to add that second battery, you're talking 1440 watt hours of runtime. So why would you choose this over a gas powered generator? I happen to own gas powered generators, but for example like us, where this is really going to shine for me is inside of our storm shelter. Obviously, you can't run a gas-powered generator inside of a condo, house, storm shelter, anything like that. The emissions alone are dangerous and could kill you. This absolutely produces 0 emissions. Say you wanted to sleep at night, run a CPAP machine, a fan, things like that. We're going to test some of that today and see how long it can run. Again, you can run this in your bedroom, indoors, wherever you need it to be. Plus, let's face it, a lot of people don't live out in the country, have yards. Maybe you live in a condo, high-rise, whatever that might be, and you have nowhere to run a gas-powered generator. Also, I think this is absolutely amazing that it can power it by solar. That's something else I'm considering getting for this is the solar panels. So real quick, it's hard to see unless I get the camera angle just right, but very easy to see by eye. It has an awesome LED display on the front that tells you battery percentage, how long it's expected to run powering up a certain device, input voltage when charging, and output voltage when running something. Also will show you if it has overload protection, does any trips, anything like that. So a really good informational display up here. I love that it tells you how long you expect your device to run. That's what we're about to test. So let's do some testing with it. All right, so here we are out in our storm shelter, and we happen to have a 5,000 BTU window unit in it. Chances are the majority of what this storm shelter is going to be used for is riding out hurricanes. So we could potentially be out here for hours, and it can get hot and stuffy. Hurricanes usually come in summertime when there's a lot of heat outside. So we decided we want that for comfort in case we have to sleep out here overnight and ride one out. Now the EcoFlow can power anything else we have in the storm shelter. It's an excellent device for a shelter, in my opinion. From our TV to weather radio to backup lights to fans, anything else you could think to bring out here, it should have more than enough power to do that. As well as, again, it can charge all your phones from USB devices to USB-C. Any kind of plug-in that you have for a phone, it'll take care of it. But the main thing we're going to test is, will it power up a window unit? If you've already watched the storm shelter episode on our channel where we did this, you were quite surprised. But let's plug it in today and test it. So we're doing a full review. This is a very common question of, will it actually power up a window unit? So all right, as you can see, I have the window unit plugged into the side of the EcoFlow, and I have the X Boost feature turned on that allow it to surge up to 1,800 watts. You kind of need that on any kind of appliances, refrigerators, freezers, or AC units that have the initial surge of a compressor startup. That's a heavy load for just a fraction of a second, and having that X Boost feature on should kick it on. So I'll turn the power plugs on the side. You can hear that just powered up, ready to go. And I'll start with fan on high and show you the wattage and expected run time. Okay, so as y'all can see, I have this on fan high. There's a ton of air movement for this room. And if we come over to this unit, see if I can get that to pick up. Right there, 12 hours of expected run time with a 99% charged battery, and it's pulling 65 watts. So let's go ahead and see if it will kick on the AC compressor. There it is. Hopefully you just heard that compressor kick on. As you can see, I am on high cool. And now if we come over here to this unit, you can see that it's got an expected 2 hours of run time with the compressor kicked in, and it's pulling 400 watts right now. That is unbelievably impressive in my mind, that this will run a window unit. It's just crazy. So that alone blew me away. That was one of the first tests I did with this unit, and the fact that it can power up a window unit with the surge of that compressor blew my mind. This is such a small, lightweight, compact package. Now you might be looking at it going, 2 hours of run time, is that really enough for me to continue to use this? But you got to understand, that was with the compressor kicked in. Once a room cools down, which does not take very long, especially in a small room like this, it goes back to fan mode, whereas you can see it would run for 12 hours. The compressor will cycle off and on throughout the day. So realistically, you should get many hours of runtime off of a window unit on this little compact package. That's awesome in my mind, especially when without power. Probably the two worst things, at least in Florida, I'm thinking without power with hurricanes, is running water and burning up, needing something to cool down. So a fan is a really good option to run as well. And again, it'll run this fan, which will recirculate a lot of air in a room, for 12 hours on a single charge. I think that's pretty cool. So for anybody that might be curious, I have got a 9-watt LED bulb hooked up. So if you needed to run power or a bulb continuously off of this, let's see how long it'll run that. So hopefully y'all can see that there. It is kind of bouncing back and forth between 85 to 95 hours it claims that it'll run that bulb. And you can see how accurate it is on this side. It's showing that bulb is pulling 8 to 9 watts. And again, it's a 9-watt bulb. So I love the readout on this thing. So for several days, it can power a bulb. All right, so we're gonna start powering up some devices. Some of them, all I wanna do is see if it will run it. Obviously, we don't care how long it'll run a coffee maker. You're just gonna make coffee for a short period of time. Same with a blender and a few other things here. Now, whenever we get into appliances to where I think you may be a lot more curious about runtime, like fans, refrigerators, maybe even saws, to see how long you can expect to work for the day, I will do my best to get this little camera up here to the screen. It's very bright behind you. There's a bad glare, but I'm gonna try to catch the runtime and wattage output and show you what it's reading. All right, here's some of the items that I can think that I would be interested in testing. I've had a few other people ask me as well. Obviously, sensitive electronics like a laptop, that's where sine wave technology is amazing. It's good, clean power for sensitive things like electronics. So we're just gonna make sure the computer can recognize this and will charge. Also, I got to thinking this would be an excellent device. Say if you were building a remote cabin on a backside of your property, somewhere doing work for the day, and you need to charge drill batteries or whatever equipment. Maybe you have an electric chainsaw, weed eater, whatever it is you're doing for the day. I want to see if this has any problem running my DeWalt charger to charge batteries. I can see that being a really neat feature on a job site for the day where you do not have electricity or power hooked up. We're going to try a circular saw. This is a 13 amp circular saw. That is a ton of energy to get started spinning that blade. I'm expecting a heck of a surge on this. We'll see if it can handle it. Also, people may be into glamping, as we call it. Maybe you want to have your coffee on the road. We'll see if it power up a Keurig coffee maker. A lot of people are curious about blenders. You never know when you might need to make that margarita off-grid somewhere. So I'm gonna power up a Ninja blender here. We'll see if it'll power up a heating element. Heating elements are probably gonna be one of the hardest draws on something like this. Maybe you might need to cook off-grid somewhere. We'll check that out. A grinder is a popular option and a very handy tool. We'll see if it'll fire that up. We'll see how long it'll run a box fan. That probably will be one of the most popular requests, especially I keep thinking hurricane situation since we live in Florida. If this thing will run that box fan for hours, that'll really help you sleep and make life a lot more comfortable when you're sitting without power. Probably the biggest test I'm gonna give it today, a 15 amp chop saw. Again, I'm thinking if you're in a situation to where you're working off grid and need to do a small job, obviously I don't expect this to power up major tools like this constantly, but I'm curious to see if it can fire up something that requires 15 amps and has to spin a very large blade. That's going to put a lot of surge on it. I'm highly doubtful it can fire that up, but we are going to find out. Also, I've had a few people ask about a refrigerator and freezer. I have a full-size one in my outside shop right here. So we're going to go power those up, kick the compressors on them, and see how long they will run as well, or what the unit says they'll do. So we got a lot of tests to do here. Let's get started. Okay, for starters, we're gonna take the charging cable for the computer here and see if something like a sensitive electronic will have any issue with this. There's a little button on the side that you hit. You'll hear a fan power up. Now it is producing 110 volts. So if I come over here to my computer, I hope you can see that. That little icon is flashing. It is showing that my computer is charging, and I do not see any issues whatsoever. And that's to be expected with sine wave technology. So another device I'm curious about is charging batteries. You know, off grid, doing some building for the day. Having this as a backup to charge multiple batteries would be a neat idea. So let's see here, we'll turn the power back on. And we will insert this battery and see if it goes to charging. It's charging just fine, flashing. Let's take a peek here. So hopefully y'all can see we were pulling 86 watts. It's got expected runtime of 9 hours charging this battery. So with that said, you could charge a bunch, and I mean a bunch of batteries, more than you could probably use in a day to go work somewhere where you did not have electricity. That's a really neat option right there. All right, here's one I'm very curious about. I'm sure a lot of people are curious if this can power up a coffee maker. There's a lot of situations where you'll be out camping, maybe RV, not have 110 volt power, and let's face it, a lot of us cannot live without our coffee. So as you can see, got the power cord coming out of the unit to this. We're going to turn it on and see if this will start heating the water without tripping anything out, and how much power it's going to pull. Now, heating element devices are very power hungry, so I expect this to put a very heavy draw on this unit if it can even power that up at all. 110 volts is on. Let's power this on and let it start heating. Green light. Now here's what I'm talking about. Check this out. As you can see, that is pulling over 600 watts to heat that water up. And this is saying it could power that for 1 solid hour. Obviously, it's only going to take just a minute, maybe 60 seconds or so for that to heat up the coffee. It'll kick back off, and this should go back to 97, 98% fully charged. You're not going to sit there and make coffee for a solid hour. So you could make multiple, and I mean multiple cups of coffee, maybe 50 or 60 cups. If you think about it, only takes roughly 60 seconds to heat that water up. All right, another popular device that you might want to run will be some sort of blender. If you had this outside at, say, a party or somewhere that you want to blend up some ice or make some drinks, let's see if it'll run a blender. Blenders have a very heavy surge when they first start up. After that, the wattage should drop quite a bit. So this is one of those situations, I don't really think it matters how long it'll run. Let's just make sure it'll kick it on. And just for reference, I took a peek down there. It was pulling 300 watts and said it could blend for a solid 2 hours. All right, so let's try another very power hungry device, a hot plate. So if you want to cook, I expect this to pull a tremendous amount of power, really put a heavy drain on this. This is one of those situations to where you may only be able to cook once or twice with something like this, but let's just see what kind of power it pulls. All right, we'll put this one on low. And as you can see, very power hungry. 600 watts, right at 600. And this is saying it'll run for 1 hour. Let's put this on high and see if it'll even run it. Interesting enough, same wattage, same run time, 1 hour. So high probably just means the plate will get even hotter, and it's just a thermostat control. So you could cook for up to 1 hour on a hot plate. Probably the one device I am most curious about would be a fan. You see that being a very common device to run on this in a power outage situation. So we've got power on now. We'll put the fan on speed number 1. Let's see what it says here. 42 watts and could run this fan for 17 hours at 97% charge. That's amazing. So you could run this fan for 2 nights, get 2 full nights of sleep before you need to recharge this unit if you ran it on low. Let's check out medium and high. So there's medium. Hopefully y'all can see we're up to 53 watts now and 14 hours of run time. Let's go on to high. 64 to 65 watts, 11 hours of runtime on high. So more than enough power to let you sleep all night long comfortably with a fan and then turn around and charge this next day. On the front of the EcoFlow, there is a tiny little button right here that you can press to turn on Wi-Fi. You can connect it to your phone, turn on the EcoFlow Pro app, and check this out. It gives you all kinds of awesome information. It's hard to see with the glare, but you can see the temperature of the unit, the battery capacity, time remaining. You can turn the light off and on. Check this out, look over there. So if you wanted to have this, say, outside a tent or somewhere, you can turn the AC off and on. You can turn the DC off and on. So if you go under AC, this is that X Boost feature that I was telling you about. You can turn it off and on. This will allow you to run up to 1800 watt surge, which is going to be critical for some of these tools that I'm about to try. All right, so we're going to try to run a very heavy duty tool here. This is a Milwaukee Circular Saw. I don't know if you can see on top, but it is a 13 amp saw. That is a lot of power requirement. And typically what'll kick a unit out like this is the initial surge of spinning that blade. Once the unit gets to running, it doesn't pull near the power or have near the surge of that quick initial startup. So if it's going to trip out, it's going to do it immediately. Let's see if it'll run a circular saw. Not a problem. So while it was running, it said it could run it for 1 solid hour and it was pulling 600 watts. So that's toward the upper limit of this unit, but it did not kick out. That X boost feature worked. And if you were needing to work off-grid somewhere with no power, you could run a full-size circular saw. Obviously, I don't expect the grinder to be any issues. This one is 6 amps, but this is a very, very common tool for grinding, cutting, and I can see a lot of people using this in an off-grid situation. So let's see if it'll kick it on. No problem at all. So this is the one I'm most curious about. You can't really tell upside down, but this is a 15 amp saw. And it's spinning a much larger hunk of metal, a much larger blade than that circular saw did. I personally don't expect this to power this up, but as you can see, I have the power cable coming from it, the X boost feature turned on. Let's see if it'll power up a 15 amp saw. So yes, it will power up a 15 amp saw. That is amazing. And I was watching this display right here. It said 1 hour of run time and about 600 watts, just like the other tools. That's quite impressive. That's the most powerful tool that I have in my shop. 15 amps is typically as large as you'll ever see for 110 volt appliances, because a lot of wall outlets are rated for 15 amps. So excuse the poor lighting, but we're actually in a room in my shop to where I have a very, very large deep freezer. It was a common request to see how well to power up a deep freezer, because let's face it, there is times that I know that we alone have just as much food or more food money-wise in a deep freezer than what one of these costs. So if this could actually help save that food, it's paid for itself. I know a lot of y'all are in a situation like that as well. So I pulled the cord, we're gonna power it on. I don't know if it's pulling any draw sitting here. Let's see. 0 watts, nothing. I'm going to turn the dial up on it, see if it'll kick the compressor on, and we'll see how long it'll run. Alright, so as y'all can see, 0 watts. We are plugged in, going behind the deep freezer. I am going to turn this dial all the way up. Alright, compressor just kicked on. Check that out. We're at 96% now. I'm not 100 after these tests, but it's saying it will run this deep freezer for 5 hours. And it's only pulling 145 watts with the compressor kicked in. Now keep in mind, don't be fooled by the 5 hours, because this compressor is not going to run forever. As soon as the compressor kicks off, it's pulling 0 watts. This is going to be very efficient. I could see this powering this up for many, many, many hours, maybe even a day or so. But this is saying if compressor stayed running solid, it would do it for 5 hours. That's awesome. This thing can save a lot of food if it can run a deep freezer for that long. All right, so I apologize. I have this back in the corner. As you can see, I do have the cord plugged in. Hopefully y'all can see that. But it is so short on this refrigerator that I cannot pull this unit out here anymore. But as you can see right now, turn the AC on. We're pulling no watts. So the compressor is not kicked in. I'm gonna open up the refrigerator, turn the dial up. The light did dim quite a bit, but look at there. It kicked the compressor on. This is pulling less watts than the deep freezer, and it's saying for keeps bouncing between 5 to 6 hours, it could power up the refrigerator with the compressor kicked in. Don't forget, the compressor will not stay kicked in that long. It'll cycle off and on. So that means this will run many, many, many hours. All right, and for the last test, somebody asked me to see if it'll run a small heater. Now, again, this is one of those heating elements. It's going to be a constant, hard, steady draw on this. This is not going to be efficient for a steady pull of a heating element. But let's face it, if you're in a life or death situation and I need some heat, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use it up completely. So let's see what it'll do for a heater. Power on. So that is fan only. I don't know if y'all can see, run for 30 hours it says, 24 watts. So So we'll put it on heat number 1. I think that's 750 watts. I can't remember exactly what this unit's rated for. It says it will run for 1 hour, and it's pulling 600 watts. I already feel the heat coming off of this. So we'll go to high. Thermostat absolutely on high. And it still says 1 hour, 600 watts. So apparently low and high doesn't really make much of a difference on these. I don't know why. Maybe high just means it'll run longer, produce more heat, even though it does have a thermostat that's wide open. So you can expect 1 hour of run time running one of these heaters on max. So what can I say? Absolutely impressed. Something this lightweight, weighs only 15.9 pounds, can power up every single thing that we threw at it today. I can think of a lot of really cool uses for this, but the most important for us, again, is power outage situations, storm shelter situations. I also looked up the specs on it. It claims fully charged. It has a 1-year shelf life. That is awesome and very important if you're going to store it in a storm shelter like us. So knowing that we can charge it up, let it sit out there on the shelf, and it's not really supposed to lose any charge for up to a year, that's awesome. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and this test. Covered a wide range of appliances. Again, just absolutely amazed that it could power everything up. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't think that it was gonna power refrigerators and freezers for that many hours. So the fact that that compressor will cycle off and on, there's no reason this shouldn't power all night long, a refrigerator or freezer, to help keep the temperature cool. Plus, on something like a deep freezer, you don't have to sit there and run it all night long. As soon as you get it to 0 degrees or less, if you've got a lot of mass in a refrigerator or freezer, you don't have to have power to them for many hours, and they will hold just fine. A refrigerator, you have to power up more often. A deep freezer, check with the FDA, but I think it's 24 or more hours they recommend that your food is safe before you really need to get that temperature back down. So you could honestly go a few days, if you really think about it, through a bad power situation if this was dedicated just to one of those deep freezers. Really, really neat device. So I should say that there is a link down in the description if you'd like to purchase it. It is an affiliate link. It does help support the channel so we can do reviews like this. There's also a $50 off coupon down there if you want to purchase the EcoFlow River PRO, the solar panels, or that extra battery that I was telling you about for this. That $50 off coupon works with all of those. So check that link out down there. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you have any questions about it, drop a comment, let me know.